action. And welcome, everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 232. Thank you, Waldek, for confirming that for me. It is 15th of January, 2024. It is season 11, 12? Doesn't matter. 11. It is 11. So in the PnP Weekly, I always talk about the latest on Microsoft 365 and our partner organizations like Azure, GitHub, Power Platform, of course, and all of that stuff. We typically have a visitor who's Microsoft employee or an MVP, and then we go through the key updates within a week. This time, our visitor is Emily Mancini. Emily had a change in the organizational side, changing between companies and all of that stuff, and Emily has been many years already active within a community with open source, and more actually in the future. That was a good discussion, right?
Absolutely.
Before we go there, just recapping also, we do this in the end, PnP Weekly in the hashtag, in Twitter or in LinkedIn. That helps us on finding your articles, what you're publishing. We would love to discuss and promote your articles, what you're doing. But let's actually jump on the interview with Emily, and then we'll get back on the articles right after that. So welcome, Emily, on the PnP Weekly episode, Waldek, 232. There we go. So Emily, you've been in the show in the past. That was a few years back because we restarted. Anyway, that doesn't matter, but fall back. But can you do a recap on who you are and what are you doing for Link?
Absolutely. So I am a Microsoft MVP, and I focus on information architecture and out-of-the-box solutions in Microsoft 365. I'm an executive director at Left Uncharted, which is a nonprofit focused on reducing the tech skills gap.
Now, I know that you were a consultant. You were a consultant in Synpraxis the last time recorded, and now you're executive director within the Left Uncharted. How did that happen? So what's the story behind of that?
Sure. So a little bit of a curly path where starting out with wanting to host an event in Miami for Microsoft 365. We don't have a big in-person community, really started to quickly grow as it got established, and I got connected to different community members. We saw how much interest there is in the city. There's actually something called the Miami Tech Talent Coalition, where they bring together all the different colleges, the different city leaders, all of the different industries and trainers to make sure that we're all aligned on where the gaps are and how we can better support the city. Miami's growing really quickly, and something that's pretty unique about it compared to other places I've lived is they really care about in-person. So this nonprofit has grown out of meeting the need of in-person need here, since there is a wealth of information online, but that's not really the support that the people were looking for in this community.
Yeah. That's actually really cool. So, and you're a non-profit. What does that mean in practice? Not making profit, but again, but in practice, especially for Europeans, that's not necessarily a kind of a familiar setup. Why non-profit, and what does that mean in practice for your day-to-day work?
Sure. So in the US, mostly nonprofits are mission-based. So our mission is specifically about committed to closing that tech skills gap for underemployed individuals, which includes nonprofits and small businesses as well. For nonprofits, you have to go through different regulations to get approved as a business and conduct your business a certain way. What that means is that I also get some government support like tax breaks, opportunities to apply for grant funding. So the intention behind making Left Uncharted a nonprofit is that there's a lot of money out there that we can be getting to help people with these career changes, and they may not know how to get that money directly to them, for example, to support that shift in getting their education. So trying to build out those programs.
I have to say, and of course there's non-profits in Europe, but again, there's a bit of a different, setup. Just to be clear, there's non-profits in Europe as well.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to ask you about, right? Like M365 is in you, and so all of the work you're doing is still in the Microsoft 365 space, right?
I think a lot of it is, but there's still a lot outside of Microsoft 365, and that's something that I'm personally really interested in. The nonprofit is also born out of my personal experience being an underemployed career changer for a very long time, and I never looked at IT as a place for me because I looked at coding and security, and that's not necessarily where my psychology and art background drew my interests. So I think a part of it is all about making sure people understand this broad spectrum of what's available,
Right. So the IT isn't new. Microsoft 365 isn't new. Why this and why now? What's changed? What was the missing ingredient? You're like, okay, we got to do this now.
Sure. Well, I think community is always going to be my first answer. Similar to there being community in Microsoft 365, and you find the right people, for example, to work on the maturity model for Microsoft 365 during the pandemic when we all got to collaborate on kicking that off. That was great. Finding people in Miami wanting in-person events is something that's been very different. I know events have been shifting a lot over the past couple of years, and they're not growing in every region. So that's part of what made it specific about here and right now. I believe the next piece is also just around there's a growing expectation around people's digital literacy skills in any type of job. You don't need to be in IT to be expected to know how to co-author and collaborate on cloud documentation and understand permissions. So as we're raising that bar of minimum expectations, who's supporting that education and bringing people up to speed?
Yeah. Now coming back on what Waldek was saying and coming back on what you were, Emily, also saying, is the IT industry finally getting to be mature enough so it's not just about the technology and the technical skills and academic skills and modernize and developer and coding and security, like you were saying. It's more about how do we use the existing tools and maximizing the value out of them. So it's no longer about investment and building new things. No. Let's rethink. We have all of these things and we can do magical things together. Is that really the change what we're seeing now?
Yeah, I think that's really fair. And especially with this conversation around artificial intelligence and people having job insecurity, I think one area in IT that's going to last pretty long is that business systems analyst, change management, evangelist role of bridging between the technology and the people. The bleeding edge of technology is always ahead of society. So who are going to be the people that help bring the rest of us along with it?
Yeah.
Right. You mentioned an interesting point, and I'm going to delve directly into it. AI. Like you would have to live under a rock not to hear about it over the last year, right?
True.
Your background is not that far background because you have many backgrounds, and I'm not meaning the art part. I mean the background around helping people organize their info, like all the data that they've got, right? So standing up information architectures that helps them work more efficiently and effectively. But then AI comes along, right? This promise of making sense out of unstructured and unorganized. How does that premise marry with organizing things? Do you still need to organize, or is it perfect? Like, can we just leave everything behind because AI
computers will figure it out,
solve everything?
Yes.
Well, I have to say some of my favorite conversations of my entire career have been debating information architecture with Mark Anderson. So I would be devastated if AI was now solving that and taking that away from us forever. No, I don't think it will be. I think that artificial intelligence is really helpful in giving us a summarized view of the input that we've given it. But if our input isn't reflective of what's important to the organization or well defined enough, then there's going to be different assumptions that might be made off of that content. And more often than not, when I have worked with other organizations as a consultant, they aren't having, let's say we're complaining about search and they say search is terrible. We don't have good information architecture. It's not that there's actually something wrong with search. So we so often blame this technology that's surfacing our core problems when that's not really where it's starting from.
Right, but I guess that is really the symptomatic approach to it. Like that is really the first, and oftentimes, like especially folks who aren't that well versed in the IT interact with. Like that's the thing that they see. So if the data that they get back, well, obviously that part is wrong, right? It's really hard for them to understand, like, what is the mechanics behind it and where it's coming from. And kind of like if the input is bad at the beginning, like you will not be able to upsert it to something more, right? You need to start at the beginning, right?
What's the right way of explaining that for a customer? We're putting on a spot, Emily. So how do you explain this challenge for customers? Because of course the customer is like, yeah, sure, search is bad. It doesn't give us anything. No. It's your fault that the search is bad. Wait, what? That's not the right way of doing that, right? So how do you explain that to the customer?
Sure. So usually when we are going through a project, one of the first things that I'll talk about is what user research we're going to do to expand on our problem statement. And that takes a lot of confusion out of what the project team's focused on, because what we are saying is the problem and maybe what we see as the problem could be a little bit different. So I think that first step of digging deeper, for example, that search one, it was an HR project. They said, search never pulls back any of this HR content. No problem. Let's list out all HR content we should find. It didn't exist on the internet. You can't search for something that's not documented, right? So it's not that search is bad. It's just you've never written it. So I think that it's funny, but when you think about it,
AI.
Yeah, but we've got AI. Don't figure it out. I think the risk there is, right, there's a lot of, it hasn't even been started. Right. So AI can't fill the gaps that haven't, it's in someone's head, it's institutional knowledge. And then on the other side of the spectrum, let's keep using benefits as an example. In the US, if I asked Copilot about my benefits and it gave me inaccurate information and I spent money based off of that, the company would owe me that. So me having inaccurate information can feed into employees making inaccurate decisions that have those financial implications. So I think there's, or security or confidentiality. So there's a lot of risk there.
Yes.
Wow,
that is actually but that's
tough.
But when I think about it, I think that's a global challenge with the AI right now, which is the AI is getting trained on the data, but quite often the data which is getting trained is not up to date, or you cannot guarantee that it's right up to date. And there are ways of technology solutions on how to deal with that. So, but the first kind of the first OpenAI ChatGPT experience is like, awesome, this is brilliant, and I can ask questions and give me that answers which were old. But for business data, the business data has to be
inaccurate, made up things, it has to be
exactly, or made up things. So how do we now? This is also for Waldek. How do we make the AI to answer relevant questions which are accurate? What's the right solution to do there? Is the RAG, whatever the technology is, technical solutions? There's always
Well, I think that will be really one of the key things to drive really adoption of AI at scale in enterprise, like make it really a common thing. Because I think it's until AI, and I think AI needs to prove itself first in a way, right? Like it's there, it's a tech, promise is there, but I think until people really feel like, like, yes, it's reliable and it's on par, I think it's always going to be like, like it's cool, but I can use it to write a blog post or maybe press release or something, like, and also in a way where there is a human being going over it before we go live. Where in the self-serve scenario, nobody's there. Like you're chatting with an agent based on AI, and there's nobody to filter and verify that, right? So that is really an interesting thing. Like, when will we reach that breakpoint where we say, now we're ready?
I really appreciate your acknowledgement of the life cycle and growth of AI, because I think there's a lot of fear and uncertainty, especially outside of IT. And one of the leaders at Miami-Dade College said this quote, that AI is the worst it will ever be right now. And I really appreciate that, as we're going to keep iterating and improving on it. So of course we're getting pictures from designer that have 7 fingers and is a little bit weird, right? But we're going to get there. And to your point, until we do, we're focused on editing. And Nielsen Norman Group did this really interesting study on ChatGPT showing that spending your time on editing, that's your special sauce of what you're contributing to the company. And using ChatGPT to reduce that draft time helps you get to focus on the things you care about more at work. That's more intriguing and interesting to you.
Yeah. And I don't think there's any doubts that the AI will increase finally the productivity. So the productivity has always been like, okay, so we're going to increase the productivity so everybody will be efficient. Historically, we've already done that. If we think about, from 50s, 60s, 70s, people don't do those jobs anymore at households or home, or we have machines, and technology is evolving. In the same way as in the office, we're doing different things, and there's automation behind the scenes which are making us more productive. But AI is really the productivity leap now going forward, and as long as we get it accurately answering the questions without any doubts. Now, coming back on the information architecture and data analytics and content types and everything else, I know that you and Mark, and you've been really a specialist on this area, and there's a lot of passion about this one. Wouldn't it, if the AI works properly, wouldn't it fair to say that content types, metadata, doesn't matter? So everything is just, automatically identified, or are we already there, or is it
in other
still...
words, it just works with the emphasis on just as the perfect word we all love, right? It just works.
I'm sure there's a world where it could be like that, but I think there's a long way between now and then. I think a lot about, even just from an intranet perspective, and the level of control people like to have over their content and how they curate it and how it appears. So if we're manually curating intranets, I would say we're not at that point yet.
Yeah, because again, you need to make... anyway. So,
and I wonder also another aspect to it, like, because you mentioned like the desire and need, and I think that's, there are some things that will change, like the focused technology itself, the tools that we've got available, and then there are things that won't change, like people's need and organizations need to express themselves and to be the unique them, the having the USP that they like, why they are the way they are, and why you would do business with them as opposed to with someone else. So as long as these drivers are there, I think that we will see, companies trying to organize the way they work in their way, because like that is what what separates them from everybody else. So as such, there will be always a unique aspect. And with that, I wonder, will that lead to the fact that no two companies are the same, no two intranets are the same, no two project environments are the same? Maybe, you express projects in your org as Teams team, where for me, that's a side. Maybe for somebody else, that's a doc lab, and maybe for somebody else, that is a project on project. So in other words, when you ask AI for project, what do you mean? How do you convey that how you model the information in your business in a way that's understandable for a machine that wasn't trained on your org? And how do we bridge that gap caused by the uniqueness of every org?
It's a really good point that there's so many different ways of working. And so often that's the number one conversation I'm having as a consultant in Microsoft 365 is which one matches your organization. I think if AI got to a point where, as people are setting up their tenants, there were those recommendations, that would be incredible. This seems like a good match based off of how you're working in these ways. Have you tried this tool? I think that would be phenomenal. But there's something interesting there too about the ways of working. There's a physicality sometimes related to how we work. And going back to the question about information architecture, I want to acknowledge that even I have that, where when I'm working with clients and looking at large data sets and volumes and things, I'm clicking and moving stuff around. I'm not typing a question and getting answer back. I'm physically interacting with the information, and that is building understanding in a different way for me. So I think that there's going to be an interesting line between how far we can get with conversational design in AI and how the AI interface is going to have to change to support these different ways that we're working.
We'll be again much wiser in 12 to 24 months. Like always, the future and learning.
The hindsight is always the best,
exactly.
Right? Like, oh my God, yeah, we know so much more now, and there's also still so much that we don't know, right? Another thing that intrigues me though is like you've been in this field working with customers, different sizes and shapes for many years already. Have you seen customers evolve, and is the general understanding of the problem space, the need, the urgency of it, is that going up? Maturity increases, or is it really very much the same? And while it increases for a company who's been working with that space, like, yes, they are increasing, but every new incumbent starts basically from scratch.
I say this with so much love and support to all of my clients that yes, they are a little bit further behind than you would expect. And everyone does seem to be starting from I would call it 0 to 300 maturity model for Microsoft 365 level. It's very, very common that we have a client and we're taking them from everything's together to let's define this for the first time and start to collaborate in a slightly different way. Yes, that companies who continue to invest after that will continue to grow, but it's tough. A lot of organizations don't have the budget or talent for someone to be on staff. And if someone's not in the business spotting the ways that this technology can help them be more effective, often we don't know to ask for it because we don't know that it exists or how it could help us.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
I guess,
in other words, they should teach that at school.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
For sure.
But and that's actually a great reminder again on the fact that if you think about the amount of customers and companies out there, there's hundreds and millions of companies out there, and as Emily is saying, quite often when we're still at the moment where people are at 0 to 300 level in the maturity level. We'll talk about the maturity level in a second, but that's quite often an oversight. Especially, I work with Waldek, I work with Bert and Patrick and many other people, and we're living in this bubble, and that gives you the impression that, of course, everybody knows this stuff. AI, everybody knows what is AI and RAGs and whatever semantics indexes and everything else.
Rags.
And then you start having RAGs, brags, bragging. So everybody then you start having a discussion, and then the reality hits. And that's a great reminder on something also what we're trying to do, reference to the community side, which is getting started and introduction videos, and all of that is the crucial piece, which people unfortunately quite often skip. We always tend to go, let's talk about the deep dive and advanced things. No. 90%
complexity
of people
sells. Just the other day,
well, that's true.
I
I'm
read
not saying
and learned
that.
complexity sells.
That is correct. However, what sells and what would be needed is two different things, right?
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
so.
Well, but experts don't thrive on simple things after all, right? Like
True.
we're experts, like we want to have a challenge, and challenge lies in complexity, not in simple things.
Yes. And then you go and present about the complex stuff, and that will make you feel better, but not that the audience actually values. And anyway, that's just everything. So now, on the maturity model, I want to touch a few things. Community days, we need to go there as well. But the maturity model, you referenced the maturity model. You've been actually kind of a fundamental member on defining the Microsoft 365 maturity model. What is that? What is that all about? And what's the reference point? Where do we find more details about that?
Sure. So the maturity model for Microsoft 365 is a framework where we break out different business competencies that you might have some outcome objectives around how you want to improve your business. And essentially in that model, it will go through different levels, 0 to 500, about the impacts and outcomes that you'll have at these different levels of maturity. So you can decide which one is the best fit for your organization. Not every company needs to be the most mature. Not every company needs AI. Maybe I'm a small business selling clothes. I don't necessarily need AI on my inventory, right? It's just one person handling it all. The maturity model for Microsoft 365 lives on Microsoft community content, which is an online article repository driven by the community. So anyone who's listening to this can also contribute to it. The team is Mark Anderson, Simon Hudson, Simon Doy, Sharon Weaver, myself, and it is an expansion on the work that Sadie Van Buren had originally done on the SharePoint maturity model quite a few years ago. But hopefully it's going to help people identify what they want to build, what solutions they have, and for people who don't know what you can do in Microsoft 365, introduce that common language.
Yeah. And I think that's really the core, the common language, common terminology, so that you can go to a different company and then say that analyze the level of a maturity in multiple different aspects, and then you can have a proper discussion and standardize the companies in their maturity. Isn't that kind of the objective?
Absolutely. That way it's easy for people to understand kind of where we are, compare stories. And then there's also a survey input where people can share where their organizations are and they're gathering trends to see how people are using Microsoft 365.
Yeah.
Going through it now, and I'm noticing two things. One, it's evolved a lot since the last time I looked at it, so it's really cool to see it grow and become more and more and more. Two, there's no AI in there. There's no AI competency.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's a good point.
Not yet.
I will admit I haven't been part of the core team for the past 6 months, so I'm a little bit out of date on where their upcoming plans are, but I'm excited to catch up in 2024, and I'm sure they have some things underway.
Yeah. And Waldek,
Really
you
cool.
can contribute. You can always
Of
contribute.
Of course.
That's yeah. Anyway, what about the other thing? We mentioned a bit about when you explained how you got started, that you first needed to have a non-profit to organize an event. And what is that event, and what's happening in February?
Sure. So on Thursday, February 1st and Friday, February 2nd is Microsoft 365 Community Days Miami. It is all day free training sessions. We have 35 international speakers, including MVPs and Microsoft. And so Friday, we have 60-minute sessions across 5 different tracks. Thursday, we have 2 pre-day workshops that you can register for, and we are going to be having that in Miami-Dade College in downtown Miami. We're really excited to have them as our community partner. They are one of the largest and most diverse colleges in the U.S., so we're excited to have them hosting us and reflecting our city and everyone who's part of it.
Is that the first time you organize event of that type in Miami?
Tech event, yes. So before my career in tech, I come from a extensive executive assistant background as well as girls youth lacrosse operations director. So I used to run large scale multi-day events in other regions. So bridging of the two things together, I think it's always interesting when you have a curly career. You never know when your other experience is going to come back in and add. This is one of those moments, which is always exciting.
And coming back on that kind of a curly career thing, it's interesting that all of the in IT, in computer, and this is IT. Is this really IT anymore? Because it's more about business consulting almost. If you don't do, there's multiple sides of it. But all of that background information, what you have about, well, I have a I was a teacher at some point, read a lot about psychology, arts, what you have, Emily. All of that has a massive impact and value within the career still. So it's not about choosing one thing and being in isolation. It's about, diversing your skill sets as well. And then
I chose one thing in isolation. What does that make me?
Yeah, that's my belief. Part of the name of Left Uncharted is this idea of when you're planning out a trip, it's what's left unmapped, left undiscovered. And when we're making those trips, we're not going, I want to go from here all the way to this destination and not checking in. There's waypoints all along the way, and you're making decisions and moving and going different places and creating that psychological safety that you can try tech and decide it's not for you. And that's still a valuable spend of your time as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Plus, tech has evolved over the last years insanely much, right? Like, so even there, you can say, well, you can say it's tech, but which aspect of it? Because it can be everything from writing IoT embedded things, like hardcore hardware, firmware design things, all the way to business consulting in IT, information architecture, which is like two opposite ends, right? And everything in between. So even there, you could say, well, you might have tried one part of the IT and maybe that isn't for you. Try another one, because there's so much more to try and they're so different.
Absolutely. I'm really drawn to the art and psychology sides. I think that's really interesting. And Vesa, you referenced that you were previously a teacher. That makes sense of you leading communities.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's the human connection, and I would say all of that kind of a different background. I think for the community especially, and a lot of people who are actively involved in community, it's all about empathy and the understanding what people actually need for helping them to succeed, and also trying to figure out on, okay, how can we help people? Being interested about helping people rather than just being an interest about your personal career, which for some people that's completely fine, but there's a different kind of people and different kind of careers for sure in IT. So,
and that's a way better answer that I should have said to the difference between Left Uncharted being a nonprofit versus a corporation, that we're focused on supporting people, not the outcome of profits. I said it in a way longer way. So I'm going to steal that one, Vesa.
I have no idea what I said, but apparently that was good. I need to get back on.
Well,
check
we're
the
recording, so you'll be able to get back to it. Lucky.
Exactly. Okay, I need to write this down. If I would ever mention that in whenever I need it in future.
You are quotable. There you go.
Sure. Now, Emily, you're also a woman in IT. If you think about diversity, and Left Uncharted is also about inclusiveness and making sure that people are able to transition between careers and industries and all of that. And you're a woman in IT. Have you seen the things evolve in a better direction, considering equality and diversity? And of course, we need to still work on this throughout the world to make things more equal, regardless of who we are and what is our background. But are we getting to better direction, or what's your kind of a feeling on that?
I think the positive change that I've seen is a shift from being an advocate to a sponsor, and people understanding that difference. So it's something that I tell Mark Anderson all the time and thank him for, that he's done for me in my career. There's a difference between telling someone, oh, you're doing great over there, or saying, hey, I have some space on my platform. Do you want to come over here with me? Because I think you have a lot of great things to contribute. And that sponsorship, I think, is what's really critical in expanding our diversity in tech, because people aren't getting invited to that table. Very often you might have the knowledge, excitement, passion, but because you don't have that bit of experience or know the right person, you're going to be blocked from that entry. So however we can bring people in, I think, is really critical.
Yeah. And I guess that's the key point of Left Uncharted as well, right? So
yeah.
So trying to get
what
those
I
connections
got.
in place. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like I had a career change because I was in the right place at the right time. I forgot my laptop was presenting, and I Googled something while the consultant said we couldn't do it. And the chief people officer saw that I figured out how to do something and was like, you're in the wrong career. Let's talk about tech. So if that hadn't happened, right? I don't know. And my dad's a systems engineer at AT&T. I grew up with tech. I grew up typing MS-DOS commands. It was never a conversation. So I think it's really important, as much as we can build and advertise these pathways of what's there and how broad that spectrum is, then we'll see a lot of changes.
Yeah. And getting more diverse views and opinions and ideas as well, because again, the more people we have and diverse backgrounds, the more powerful we are together to come up with a great ideas on succeeding together. I think that's really the key power of those diverse backgrounds which we all have. So it's not about coming from university and graduating to be a computer science master. And those people are really good as well. We need those people as well, but you don't have to be computer science master from university. I'm not, but you can still get to do cool stuff within IT or within business in together. So I don't even have a university degree, to be honest. Is that a secret? Are they firing me from Microsoft for saying that?
I love that. Yeah, I think it's nice to talk about. It's the number one question I get at conferences is people will come up to me and say, like, how did you get into user experience? And I don't have a clear normal path. And I think the more that we all share the weird ways that we got there, the more people find different footholds and have more creative ways to change that.
True. And really,
if anything else, it's the serendipity of stuff. Like, you just happen to be at the right place, the right time, and it happened, right? It's not like you had this paved path, and in 3 years I'm going to be that, and in 5 years I'm going to be that, and in 10 years I'm going to be that. Like, well, yes, you might have thought that, but is that a reality? I don't think so.
Yeah. It's those luck of a striking of a luck or whatever occasions, what just magically happens, and then you get to know somebody, and oh my god, and then there's a connection, and get to say yes in a certain time. So
which is an interesting point. Right? Because like on one hand, you could say that internet and ubiquity of social, like, that levels the field. Everybody has now voice. Everybody has platform to share their stuff. I don't think that's the case. Right? And as you say, like, some folks have more access to right people, places, and so forth and so on. So what tips would you give to community leaders, community leads, people who have that platform to open up, to be more aware of people around them that might need help?
That's such a good question. And I think I have a lot of growth in this area. I'll admit, even though I'm starting a nonprofit, I'm coming at it from the subject matter expertise, and I'm going to grow in learning about nonprofit management and community building. But I do think that part of it, at least, is around just making sure that we're the ones reaching out. I think that very often you say, oh, well, my door is open. Well, do they know how to get to the door? Do they know the door exists? So I really think that the people with the platform have to do way more work than they think they do to find the people who want what they're creating.
Yeah, it's and again, historically, I can this how would I put this in the right way? So it's the classical way of saying, well, everybody can submit, everybody can come in. But guess what? Not that many people have the skills or let's say the courage to submit, even though you would be open for them to do things. So flipping that, upside down and going to the people. If you see somebody actually writing something cool as a blog post or doing a cool tweet or a sample or whatever in the community and going to them and asking them to present, typically can open up people to be like, yeah, well, sure, I can do that. That by the way, works really well in our community calls as well, because, well, we're using Luisa as an example for helping us on reaching the people, and we're reaching the people and asking them to present. And all of a sudden, there's a lot of people who will be like, yeah, I can actually do that. But that comes back on also on conference organizers. It's actually much more work to have that, external facing, would you come question as well. It's so easy to say, well, we're open for submissions, but
Well, and also I wonder, like, to what extent, because there's like the other day I read an interesting article about what makes us think the way we do, and one of the important aspects are incentives. We're incentivized to do things in different way, and there was this interesting thing, like question that we all should ask ourselves once in a while is, what perceptions that I have would change if my incentives changed? And that is an interesting thing, right? Because, like, if you think about like organizing an event, and especially events where there is profit involved, I can imagine, like, if all of everybody who speaks would be brand new, people that nobody has ever heard of,
Yep.
What would that mean for the attendance?
But again, that's the second extreme. Obviously, we wouldn't go
extreme.
Yeah, but it's not either or, exactly. Of course. But again, that's a fair point.
Exactly, right? So how that thinking and the incentives that we've put in place influence the way we think and operate. And
true.
Is there anything that needs to change there?
Yep. Yeah. Whoever is setting the incentives, what's the right way of saying that? Whoever is setting the incentives, needs to consider these additional perspectives as well, and therefore, then the incentives are different. And then getting the diversity, for example, into account in the metrics related on, let's say, organizing a conference, that has a big impact. And that will probably have a positive impact if we go after the conference or in the conference promotion and we say 30% of our attendees or speakers will be new people from a various backgrounds, and we're helping them to succeed. I would actually rather go to see one of those conferences probably than somewhere where there's no new people. So it's always nice to have new people and see new people and new stars which are blooming. So.
And that's a good point. Going back to kind of the sponsorship we were talking about before with increasing the diversity in tech, of offering to co-present with someone or inviting them to submit is often that sponsorship. I don't know that I ever would have started externally presenting if Derek Cash Peterson hadn't offered to co-present with me at Collab Days New England. I didn't know that I had things that other people wanted to hear. So sometimes someone just needs to tell you that what you're doing and working on should be shared.
Yep.
Wow. Yep. But that's like coming from you. That's so insane. Like, so much stuff I'm intrigued about. It's like, how have you ever thought, like, nobody wants to, like, Emily,
well, thanks,
like, but it's the imposter syndrome also. And a lot of us have that, and it's completely understandable.
And also you don't know what you actually know, right? Correct. So it's really hard to like get back to it. Like, these are the 10 things that I know, and I'm pretty good at that. Like, it's hard because you are so deep in the weeds, and you always like, you're looking forward to the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and you look towards that. It's like, oh my God, I don't know anything. It's like, well, that's not quite true because you came from there, so you know actually a bit.
Yeah. Which comes back on encouraging people and sponsorship, as you were, Emily, saying, the importance of sponsorship and helping people, and the partner buddy systems and all of that is incredibly important to give people feel comfortable enough to go to the present and do things and go outside of the shell or outside of the comfort zone, because then you can actually get magical things done. So when you do that, cool.
I'd love to offer up,
sorry.
if it's all right,
Absolutely,
another
100%.
another diversity in tech topic. Of aside from being a woman in tech, I think and care a lot about neurodiversity in tech, and it's something, just to Waldek, your point of saying thank you for the compliment of I know a lot. Well, I have ADHD and I have a lot of hyperfixations. So I get really interested in something, I learn a lot about it, and then I move on. I think something that's really interested that in Left Uncharted is how do we identify what our special superpowers are in those ways, our differences, and how do we also then know how to control them so that they're not so powerful that they are running us. And I think that whole person support conversation is something that we're really focused on. It's not, learning isn't just a financial barrier or a time barrier. It might be other things, whether it be food, housing, mental wellness, health. There's a lot there.
Yeah. And there's a lot of opportunity for partnerships and sponsorships over there as well. So again, helping people to get outside of or unblocking the career path and opportunities for people to help them to succeed, which is a important thing. So cool. I know that we are a bit of out of time because we do have a meeting starting pretty soon with Waldek, with some other people. We're getting this even recorded, so there we go. But thank you, Emily, on a really great discussion. Always good to have great discussions with you. Hopefully, well, we will see you at least in ECS latest. Unfortunately, I couldn't drop by in Collab Days Miami, which is happening within a few weeks. Hopefully, we'll have a lot of people, by the way, over there, so don't miss out. But thanks, Emily, and also thank you for all the help and magnificent work that you're doing in the community side and helping others to succeed. So thank you for that. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Excellent. And now we'll jump then to the weekly articles, what has happened within the Microsoft and community side. But thank you, Emily. Really, really cool. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, Emily, one more time on the great discussion. Good to catch up and a lot of good things there. And I need to go back in time to listen. What was the thing? What I said? No, never.
Yes, listen to your own quote. It was so good. What did I say actually?
I have no idea. It's okay. So cool. Let's go through the weekly articles. It's still a pretty quiet weeks, right? So not that many things happening from Microsoft side, and even on the community side, which is, I think it's good. People are having enough time to rest throughout the holiday season and all of that, which is also important. But let's start with a from Microsoft side. So Nicole Hersowitz had a blog post related on level up your retail workforce with smart, simple solution Microsoft Teams. And really, this is kind of a partner blog post related on the retail conference, which was ongoing, I think, last week. And basically calling out all of the retail capabilities and functionalities which we have available within Microsoft Teams and the partner solutions like the Microsoft Viva Engage and Viva Connection and all of that stuff. So a lot of great innovations for making retail capabilities, retail industry more productive through the Microsoft Teams. So it's not just about videos, not just about chat, but also a lot of other opportunities in place. So great storytelling here. The same applies actually for this one, which is kind of a partner article in the Teams blog on exactly the same topic, calling out the Viva Connection, Viva Engage updates and what's happening there, and also other updates within the Microsoft Teams context, making the retail industry more productive. So a lot of cool stuff. The scheduling, administrative things, all of this stuff, it gets really mature pretty fast. So it's no longer just chatting, right?
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. I just said that it's not about chatting.
Yes, you are right. It is no longer about chatting.
Sorry.
English is hard, isn't it?
Cool. On the SharePoint Premium blog, there's a new blog post from Bill Bear related on new promotional offer for SharePoint Premium. So a lot of some adjustments after the GA announcement within Microsoft Ignite related on the offerings and licensing and all of that. So a lot of details from Bill and reference points on what's available for you to take advantage. And I guess these are all making it easier to test it out and to understand all of the awesomeness and the power what the SharePoint Premium is actually providing. So really cool.
And I just realized on that note that we've got one thing that just popped to my mind that we don't have in the notes, but I shared a link just now in the chat, which is a new Visual Studio Code extension for SharePoint Embedded.
Yes, let's actually cover that one as we go to that right section. I will actually put it in here, put it in here, and put it in here.
There you go.
That's actually a good recap. Good. Also, there's a SharePoint Premium Content Management 2023 review and what's next for 2024 update from Jolene Tam, kind of walking through the key announcements within 2023, referencing the video announcements, and also talking a bit about the future. So what are the areas where we are investing within the SharePoint Premium context, and more details coming at AAM 24 and Microsoft 365 conference pretty soon. So Microsoft 365 conference in end of April. And when was this one? Let's actually quickly have a look. AAM conference is happening in April 3rd to 5th, so a bit before Microsoft 365 conference. So more announcements and capabilities happening there. On the Viva connection of Viva side, we had a blog post from me. I've written a blog post last week. Interesting. On updated and new ready-to-use cards available in Viva Connection. It feels like I'm writing blog posts every single day nowadays. Sorry.
But when do they go live? I don't know.
But yeah, so actually last year already, we released a new set of capabilities and out-of-the-box cards and features within the Viva Connection. And there was a request on writing a blog post and basically calling them out. And these are adjustments for the news card, so you can be more precise on what news are getting surfaced. The people search capabilities and also events are now available for Viva Connection out of the box. Cool. So more and more flexibility from there. On Fluid Framework 2.0 beta from Kai Schiff and Nick Simmons, they also did a community call demo on this one last week, right?
That's cool. Yes, you are right. We will have the recording of that coming online. Is it already available? Or is it
already available? Recordings are always out within 24 hours after the call. So
there
they
you go.
are
there
already
you go.
Out.
So you will see the video of that or the recording of that live demo in action and explaining what's new and coming, because it's really cool, right? So if you look into building an application that gives you this real-time engagement, Fluid Framework is exactly what you need.
Yep, absolutely. And what's really cool here also is that we are supporting now new relay service on as SharePoint Embedded, and that means that the data never leaves your tenants. Again, you're basically the relay service is responsible of communicating between the different applications which are doing real-time collaboration at the same time. It sounds so impressive, but it's incredibly impressive.
It's really cool. Yeah.
SharePoint Embedded as the relay for making that happen. That's actually really cool. On the Power Platform side, there was a recap on Modern Control's evolution in 2023 and glimpse of into 2024 innovation. These are good. So, recaps and then looking into what's happening in the future, giving some insights on what's going to be announced and what's coming, so which is good. So themes, improvements, a lot of new controls in Power Platform and Power App sites, and more introduced features also in 2024. So a lot of investments obviously on that side. And then, not least, which the ad hoc one, which I forget about, the SharePoint Embedded Visual Studio Code extension. So this is actually pretty cool. So it actually makes use of the free trial container types, and that's actually really smart move from the SharePoint Embedded team. So you can basically have trial containers which exist for 30 days. And then you will need to clean up, and then you can create new one. So it's not a one-time offer; it's a continuous offer. But you need to recreate that container. So you cannot use it for production usage, but you can build as a developer on top of it. That's smart.
So one and two also, it's really great that we have this extension because it simplifies, the getting it to work so much, right? Because like you get a visual thing where it takes you step by step, like sign in, create an Entra app reg, create container. Like you get all of that. You don't need to fiddle with command line, finding the right commands, getting them to work. Like you have really to follow UI. So it's really cool to see that, and it's going to be really interesting to see what people do with this.
Absolutely. Really, very cool. Awesome stuff. Great that we're getting more and more extension also in Visual Studio Code because it is such a great tool to do development. Or that's where we are when we're developing stuff. It's interesting. We used to, whenever we started with SPFX, VS Code was just one of the options. Now it's like de facto,
Yeah.
But anyway, Niraj Shah had a blog post on the Power Platform developer blog around unlock retail productivity with Power Platform and Dataverse. Dataverse scenarios in the retail context and what's possible and how you can build stuff in using the Power Platform and the Dataverse. Super cool as well. Now, Mikael Svensson from Microsoft side. Product manager. No, you're not a product manager anymore, by the way, Mikael, so I need to update this one.
Update your blog.
Yes. Demystifying author properties on files in SharePoint and search. Mikael is, I would say, definitely one of the go-to guys in anything in search. It's always like, hey, Mikael, can I help with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Because he knows. And now he's a principal engineer within the search organization, not anymore PM. So there's a bit of a difference. We talked about at some point with Vincent within this show. Why did he move from PM role to the engineering role? I think Mikael had exactly the same experience. So he wanted to be more hands-on and do technical stuff rather than we PMs or coordinating things. So I would love to do both, but never mind.
Just wanted to say something, but
So Mahmoud Hassan had a LinkedIn blog post. I think these are blog posts as well. I think we can call them blog posts, articles. Topics in Viva and Copilot for Microsoft 365 chat integration. So basically calling out the different considerations and things to consider and how things are actually working, and a nice picture on what's what actually. So there's the topics visible directly within the Viva Microsoft 365 chat. Can I actually open this one? I can't. Sorry.
No,
but Microsoft Viva, it's topics, not anymore actually Microsoft Viva topics, if I remember correctly, the renaming and all of that stuff. So, but it's exposed in the Microsoft 365 chat as well. Good. Unveiling audit logs with PnP PowerShell from Rashmi. No clue. Yep. So basically, we can use the PowerShell to get audit logs, and then the audit logs will give us the insights related on all of the different actions, what's happening within a tenant. This is, by the way, a lot of the automations, or let's say there's a lot of these governance applications. The audit logs is how they actually quite often work, so how they get the baseline and then they track on things, what else is happening. But the audit logs is a great location to understand what has happened. File has moved, file has copied, file has deleted. And there's a lot of these logs, because every single time there's an operation happening in the system, it will get logged in the audit logs so that people know who did what where. So
yes,
traceability. And thank you, Rashmi, for calling out all of the different PowerShell commandlets, in this case using the PnP PowerShell, which works on unified logging as well. So there's an example script on getting the information out. So really cool. PnP PowerShell is used by more than 40,000 tenants within every single month, which is mind-boggling.
That's cool.
Yeah, not impressed at all. So, yeah.
That's cool.
Cool. Let's go to the videos. So 365 Message Center show, Darrell and Daniel, episode 317. What's the time? Is it what time is it where you are? I think that's referred to the Microsoft Teams user profile and the user details, so you can actually see the time of the person where.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's actually really cool.
That's really like one of the things that trips me up. Always like, oh, that is out now. Because I haven't been seeing that internally for such a long time already. Like, yes. I have no idea what's available, and that's not. You know what? That is not my thing to announce.
Yep. It's a lot of cool things, and of course, that's the challenge for us as a Microsoft employees. We get access on a lot of the stuff advanced, so you don't know what's out and what's not out. But this is super important, and there's a lot of other things as well, which are getting announced within the show. So thank you for that. Now, Andrew Connell. Zero to Hero complete tutorial on building SharePoint embedded apps. This tutorial is, by the way, not using the VS Code extension, but again, it's still the VS Code extension is improving even this experience better.
Yep.
I don't need any captions. I can listen. But yeah, really cool for going through. And this is 50 minutes, so it's not a small tutorial, but it really goes through step by step on what is SharePoint embedded, how to get started, all of that stuff, which is awesome. Thank you, AC, on that one. Then we'll have a look on how to apply to LAB University of Applied Science. Let me click skip. So there we go. Shane is back on customize SharePoint list forms with Power Apps. So classic scenario. This is a good reminder for again on the fact that the baseline getting started video tutorials are super important, not just the deep dives, but also, okay, how do I get started? How do I do that? There's so many people, new people coming in on learning things. So, which is cool. And this is quite long as well, 17 minutes walking through different scenarios, what works and what doesn't work. And then the final show from last week, content types and document templates. This relates on a bit on the discussion with Emily, right? What is the why content types actually matters and all of that stuff. Emily used to work for Praxis Consulting, as we chatted within the interview as well. This really what talks about those templates and how they actually work and what is the importance. And they do matter within a time of AI as well. So the structural data improves the reliability and preciseness of the AI results because AI understands what the data is actually all about. That's why the metadata actually matters. So, or does it, Waldek? Does it matter? Does it matter?
Huh. That you will find out in the next episode of this show. No.
Cool. Good. Anything interesting on your side?
Oh yes, totally.
A lot of stuff
cannot
happening.
wait to tell more. We are wrapping up a next release of Dev Proxy, and it's packed. Like we've been working a lot since actually a whole December, beginning of January. Like build quite a few new cool things. So we cannot wait to share with you. It should be out in the next few days. So we're really excited about it and really cannot wait to hear from folks. What do they think and what creative use cases they will put it to use for.
Yep, absolutely. Really cool. On my side, what's happening? I don't know. Community calls, all of that is happening. There's so many things happening. Viva Connection pod-powered ACs were supposed to go live last week. Unfortunately, we need to delay that a bit. Hopefully, we'll get that one sorted out pretty soon. There's always every now and then this might happen. So you're thinking on doing something, and then last minute it's like, no. We need to adjust certain things before we can go live, so that the first impressions will be good.
Yes.
But it's okay. There's so much. Luckily today, actually US, as we're recording this on Monday, 15th of January, today is public holiday in US. So that means that there's a time to catch up on things on evening, which is really good. No meetings. Well, it's still, there's meetings in the calendar, but because people forgot about canceling them, which is
it's gonna be interesting.
Always
to see,
remember,
will people show up or not? I don't know.
I will probably show up on those because please remember to cancel. If you cannot make a meeting, please cancel, because what if you have global people joining and they not sure is the meeting happening or not?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Cool. I guess that's it for now. Hashtag PnP Weekly in Twitter or in LinkedIn helps us on catching up on your stories. Hopefully next week we'll have much more material. Most likely we'll do. There's a lot more and more material getting released now that we're getting back from the holiday season. Well, we'll be past the holiday season, but again, so.
Where are we? Which holidays?
Yeah, that's true as well.
There you go.
That is good. Yes. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching, listening. Please do give us feedback if there's any thoughts on how we can improve or if there are people who want to stay in the show. Thank you, Emily. Really great discussion. Awesome stuff there. Thank you, Waldek. Have a great rest of the week as well. Thank you.
See you next week.
Cheers.